Warning, listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. Well, here's a question. And, it's a pretty deep question, but I want you to think about this. Do you ever feel stuck, like you've lost your passion, maybe unsure of your purpose? Maybe you've been through a terrible situation. You maybe faced insecurities, rejection, abandonment that caused unhealthy relationships that have detoured your success financially and emotionally. Well, sometimes negative thoughts, negative attachments, and negative behaviors due to past pain and trauma can cause us to feel like we've lost our path in life. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. My guest is Dr. Tanya Hightower. She is an empowerment, motivational speaker, life purpose consultant, and author of Destiny Grabbers. And she helps women discover purpose, get their passion back, redefine themselves, and refocus on who they are and what they were born to do. Dr. Hightower, welcome to Influencers Radio.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, you have a pretty interesting story, and something that's unique, or at least what a lot of people think might be unique, because they don't really talk a lot about what we're going to be talking about today. So what I'd like to do is kick this off with, let me say this. I bet when you were in school and they asked you what you wanted to do when you grew up, helping women discover their life purpose probably wasn't on the top of your list. So what called you to this path? What drives your passion to do this?
Well, I found myself in pattern situations where I had failed relationships. I had failed businesses because I had two other businesses that didn't make it. I began to have negative thought patterns in relationships, as the attachment was really the root of the problem. And it goes way back until my childhood, where I had been in a situation where my mother didn't have the attachment to me as a mother should during the developing process of a child. And that was a chain reaction into my adulthood, and me having these particular negative behaviors and patterns. And I did not know this until I had reached maybe in my 50s, that I wasn't in my purpose. And I really didn't even know myself. And so it stems back to that. And that is the reason why I find myself wanting to help women, and women wear masks. They don't like to show who they really are, because sometimes they don't even know who they really are. And so my passion in helping these women redefine themselves, because of them not knowing themselves, to help them to discover their purpose, help them to get the passion that they may once have had, and they have lost it and gotten stuck. And so this is what drives me, is empowering women to be what they were born to be, to do what they were born to do. And that is what gives me the thrive into helping women.
Well, like I said at the top of the show, is, a lot of people think that this is unique to them, or if it's their own problem that other people wouldn't understand. And you've reached thousands of people over the years, and the years of public service, 25 years as a leader in ministry. Can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe shine a light on, with all the people that you've talked to and you've helped through this, what can you tell people to let them know that they're not alone in this situation and it's not unique to them, and that there is, some light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I can only tell you what has happened to me, and as it relates to my testimony. And again, I'll go back to not having the nurturing and the love that my mother didn't give me. She was a single parent. It was 4 of us, and that was 3 different daddies. But I was the oldest, so it started off with me, and I can remember going to kindergarten. And my mother was dropping me off at kindergarten, and I was crying. And she dropped me off. She turned her back and she walked off. And the teacher had to grab my hand, and I watched her, and she never turned back. And that was the start of the detachment of me not getting that nourishment. And then what happened then is this little boy that was in my classroom, he started to show attention to me. And when he started showing attention to me, he started to put his hand under my dress, and he started to play with me. And I didn't know, what was going on at the time. I'm in kindergarten. And so it wasn't until I ended up going to another school the next year, and I had blocked it out. And it wasn't until I wrote my book that I remembered everything that happened to me. And all that was a part of the detachment from elementary to junior high, and getting a boyfriend and being jealous of him. And even around when my husband and I were dating, I was jealous of his family because of that abandonment, because of that rejection. And so all that started in that pattern of me as I became an adult, affected me in ministry. It affected me whereas I couldn't trust. I always had a wall. And when you're in leadership, you can't have that wall. Me and the lay people, we were okay, but it was the authority figure that I had an issue with. And so my leader, he had his own insecurities. And so I got a lot of emotional abuse. But I say this because nothing can happen to you if you don't allow it to happen to you. And so when I recognized as the years gone on that I had my own issues, so I cannot say that he was the cause of this. I had to deal with my own issues. And that's where I began to, it was really tough. Because I even had an incident with my sister and disassociating myself with her because the same leader, when he ostracized me from the church and all the other people had kind of ostracized me, and my sister and her husband was there, she did the same thing. And that's what hurt me the most. Now, that was a betrayal that I could never forget. I had to go into what we call a sabbatical for months before I could overcome this. And because of my faith, I even went to get counseling. And so I overcame it through my faith and through counseling and meditation and changing my mindset. Is what's helped me. And so I know that I am called to this. I'm called to help other women to overcome these issues. And their issues don't have to be my issues. It doesn't have to be rejection or abandonment. But I do know a lot of women have insecurities.
Yeah, well, you mentioned your book, Destiny Grabbers, and that book, it chronicles your life from childhood on, and it certainly sounds like it was cathartic for you. I could imagine, laying that out there was cathartic for you. But can you talk a little bit about what can someone else take away from that book as they read through you going through these obstacles and overcoming these obstacles? How can they use that in their own lives?
Number one is they can face their own insecurities. A lot of times what I find out when someone else tells their story and other people can relate to their stories, then they can begin to sit down, because a lot of times we're on the move so fast, we don't have time to be still and listen within ourselves and get the healing within ourselves. So number one is they can sit down and see their story and my story, whatever the case may be, and then take some time in themselves and start listening, listing, listing, the different things that they have that may be facing that has hindered them from financial blessing, from making a leap into a business, from relationships. And so what they can take from my book is they can take their own journey out from listening from my story and how I've overcome.
Well, you said earlier that their problems don't have to be your problems, right? Their situation doesn't have to be the same as you. So let's go back into the general sense. Let's say someone they feel stuck. They feel like they've lost their passion. They've lost what that purpose is in life. How do you, once you figure out that, I think I've lost my purpose, or I lost this passion for life, how do you rediscover that purpose? How do you start to redefine yourself in order to get back on that path?
Well, you first have to look within yourself. When I start off the book, I talk about the creator, and whatever your creator is, we all were created, and we all our purpose was given to us by our creator, and so he or she, or whatever you want to call, is the only one that knows your purpose, knows your specific purpose. So you have to look within yourself, but you have to be still and be able to listen from within. And when you sit still and listen from within, you're gonna hear something. And you're gonna, whether it's in your subconscious or not, you're gonna hear something. But you have to take the time to be still first. Your purpose is the original intent of what you were born to do, what you were created to do. And everybody was created to do something on this earth. And it's not for ourselves, it's for us to help others. That's why I have this passion to help other women. I was scheduled to do a workshop last year, 2020, at a hotel called Destiny Grabbers Women's Gathering, where we were going to talk about purpose and identity and potential and so forth. And this was to empower women to know that they were just not created to be Eve and Adam's wife. Women were born with purpose as well. And so when we know that we have purpose also, and not just to be a wife, then we can do what we've been called to do.
And so when you discover that, I'm sure that's got to be kind of a very powerful moment when women do discover that, when they have that moment of this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm meant to do. And I'm sure that energizes them and really changes their mindset and their outlook. Can you recall the moment that happened to you, that when you had that moment?
I can definitely recall it, but I have to take you back to why I didn't know. When I was in leadership, and a lot of times we as women and men as well, we take on the identity that someone has given us. As a woman minister in the traditional church, a lot of times we were not able to preach in the pulpit. Now, at my specific church, we could, but in some traditions, you could not preach in the pulpit. Women were not treated like men were treated. And so after a while, the women took this identity of this is who we were. But we were called by God just as they were. And so when I recognized myself through my own meditation, my own looking within myself, and my own changing my mindset, because you have to change your mindset. Your thoughts are the ones that take you where you are or where you're going. And so you have to change your thought. It's a saying that my mentor would say, your feet can't go where your mind hasn't been. So if your mind is still stuck in that same position, you're going to stay there. So you have to change your mindset. And once I changed my mindset, I began to hear positive affirmations. I began to just search within myself. Then I was able to sit down and say, no, I can't take it. Now, you also have to also be willing to go against the norm. And a lot of women are fearful in going against the norm. But when you know your unique self and you are confident in yourself, then you can go against the norm and you can be who God has said you are, instead of what man or whoever else has placed on you or tagged you with.
Yeah, well, that saying that you just, what is it? Your feet can't go where your mind
hasn't been. Yes,
reminds me of a George Clinton saying as well.
Yeah, well, I'm going to give you an example of that. I was speaking at actually this was before then. My mentor was doing a workshop in Barbados, and at the time, my finances would not allow me to, but I did not let that stop me. My mind was on Barbados, and I got creative and did sponsorship. And I went to Barbados because my mind was on Barbados. So I took my feet there.
I guess that's all about that mindset.
It's a mindset, yes.
Yeah. Well, in your book, it's interesting. I say it chronicles, from your childhood, and I'm certain, at least I would hope, that there's going to be a part 2 coming up, because you haven't even, I don't think you've come even near the potential of what you have for helping people. But when you go through, and it's really interesting the way that your chapters, kind of go through the different, the different phases. It's almost like chapters of your life, right?
Yes.
That goes through. And, as it gets towards, outside, out of the, when you're a child and the abandonment and the, I believe you have a chapter on the reaching, but not enough, right? That's on the rejection. But then when I think it's, one of the chapters is about the destiny, right? Snatched out of bondage. Is that time that you're talking about where you start kind of discovering this light?
Yes, that was the time, snatched out of bondage. When you snatched out of bondage, then you know your destiny, you have purpose, and then now you have to make the decision of not being fearful to move out of the norm and to move into another level of your life. I've been doing posts on my Facebook about becoming, because a lot of us, we like to say I am, but we're never I am. We're always evolving. So we are becoming. And so I'm still becoming. And when you talked about another book, it took me 15 years to write that book. And you know what? You know why? Because at the time when I wanted to write it 15 years ago, God told me my story wasn't finished. So when you said that, it kind of made me laugh, because, my story's still not finished.
Yeah, it's only up till now. So, but what I'm really curious about is that next chapter. After that snatched out of bondage, that destiny, then you go to that leading to influence. Can you talk about that? What that meant to you, and what that phase is like?
That was the time, I remember exactly. That was the time when I was going through what I was going through with my leader, and I ended up having to leave the church. And at the same time, my brother had passed away, and I was really, really going through. And it wasn't until my mentor, Dr. Cindy Trim, began to take me under her wings, and I sat under her teaching, and she taught a class about maturation. And maturation is Christian maturing, but it's not only maturing spiritually, it's maturing financially, it's maturing emotionally, it's maturing physically. And so when I went through that course that she had, that helped me to understand that in order for you to move forward into what you've really been called to do, you have to deal with every aspect of your life, not just one. I was 100% in the spirituality, but I was lacking in relationship. I was lacking in my finances. I was lacking emotionally. Until I began to deal with those things, then I was able to move further into what I was really called to do. And that's what the leading to influence, because you can't lead if you haven't underwent some type of trauma, or not necessarily trauma, but a lot of times we as leaders, we want to lead somebody where we have not been ourselves. That's what I meant. And until you have gone through some things yourself, then you're not able to lead effectively, because you have to meet the followers where they are. And so that's what the leading with influence is about, is to helping myself walk into leadership and an effective leadership. And it's the growing process.
And, I think, one of the concepts that really permeates what you talk about is that tapping into potential. And, and I know that, when things like that, there's a rejection, abandonment, things when people are facing adversity, when they're facing these situations, they can cause a chain reaction that makes them, tumble down that darkness, right? Mm-hmm. But it also sounds like chain reaction can occur to lift you up. That when you're get your mindset right. And into positive things, there can also be a chain reaction, right? That all of a sudden the good things can happen to you. And a lot of people don't think about it in that way. Can you talk about how it may not be something that just happens overnight, but how that first step, that first little success can cause that chain reaction to help someone tap into that potential?
Yeah, because everything is a process. I even talk about forgiveness as being a process. Everything is a process. But the process doesn't start until, number one, you acknowledge that there is a problem, or you acknowledge there is something. And then once you acknowledge, then you have to take the step in order to either go further in the positive way, or to go further in letting the negative stuff go. So you have to acknowledge it first. You have to take a step. You have to take the action steps. And in taking the action steps could be changing your environment. I talk a lot about changing your environment, because a lot of the people that I used to be around, I'm no longer, they still are a part of my life, but they're at another season of my life, because my season has changed in the people that I'm surrounding myself with. So you have to surround yourself with positive people. A lot of times you really need to surround yourself with the people that you want to emulate. And those are the people who have been where you're going. And so that's one of the other things that you need to do as well in taking the positive step, acknowledging it, taking the action step, getting in the right environment, the right atmosphere. And then once you get in the right atmosphere, you have to also have what I call the humility, because you have not arrived yet. You're still learning. And when you sit and what we call in the spiritual aspect, you're sitting at the feet of Jesus. And so you're pretty much sitting at the feet of a mentor or a coach or whatever, who has been where you're trying to go.
Well, I think that's the one thing that you do so well. You've been there. You've been through the darkness. You've almost created a map to the light.
Yes.
For for a lot of women. And I know you talked before about workshop, and I know this COVID pandemic has changed a lot of people's plans.
Yes.
So what are some of the different ways that if women find themselves in this situation, or they feel that lost, they've lost that way? What are some of the different ways that they can work with you? Is it something you do one-on-one or group in a group setting?
Well, I have a Facebook community called Destiny Grabbers Women's Gathering. They can connect with me on my in my community on Facebook, Destiny Grabbers Women Gathering. Also on my website, you could go and check out my website, www.tphightowering.com. I'm on Twitter, Tanya Hightower. Link it, Dr. Hightower, and Instagram as well. And YouTube. I have a lot of my teaching on YouTube, and that would be at Dr. Tanya Hightower. Well, I do a lot of early morning women's empowerment. And so I'll do videos on empowering women daily. If not videos, I do posts, and I'll be coming up with some master classes and where they can also be a part of. But the most important is, if you want to get these early morning women's empowerment, connect with me on my Facebook community, Destiny Grabbers Women Gathering.
All right, fantastic. Well, we'll definitely put those links on the show post. And I have to ask for your book, right? What Destiny Grabbers? People that you get that on Amazon. What are some ways that people can check that out?
They can go to my website, and I have a link from Amazon, and I have a link from Barnes and Noble, and they can get them from there. Or they, I have some too, but you just reach out to me on my email. But the best way to get it is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble through my website. I have a section on my website specifically for my book.
All right. Well, fantastic. Dr. Hightower, I got to thank you for coming on and sharing sharing not only your story, but also, giving some hope and showing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that things can turn around with the right guidance. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, folks, there you have it. Definitely check out Dr. Tanya Hightower, TPHIGHTOWERINT.com. Again, we'll have a link on the show post, along with how you can connect with her on social media. Until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today.